The parents of murdered Perth brothers Jake and Callum Robinson have made an emotional address as they prepare to bring home their sons' bodies from Mexico. Deborah and Martin Robinson travelled to Ensenada to identify their sons after the surfers' remains were found in a well.
They've asked the community to live bigger and shine brighter, love harder in their boys' memory.
Callum was a lovable, larger-than-life character and considered the United States his second home. Known as the Big Koala, he played professional lacrosse in the PLL and represented Australia in the World Championships and always found time to coach junior teams. His brother Jake was a happy, gentle and compassionate soul who was pursuing a career in medicine. Jake's passion was surfing, and it was no coincidence that many of his hospitals that he worked in were close to surfing beaches. Sadly, he was also a cricket tragic, and last year travelled to England to watch the Aussies play. Now it's time to bring them home to family and friends and the ocean waves in Australia. Please, live bigger, shine brighter and love harder in their memory. Thank you.
Deborah and Martin there, a difficult address to make. North America correspondent Carrington Clark has been following the story and joins us from Baja, California. Carrington, it is simply heart-wrenching watching the parents there.
Yeah, it's just so almost impossible, I would say, to comprehend how horrific this past week has been for these parents. They first realised that their sons had gone missing in Baja, California, and then forced to raise the alarm with authorities here, and then making that journey from Australia via America to Mexico, and hearing that their sons had been murdered and their bodies disposed of in a well along with their travel companion and friend Carter Road. It's just so difficult to first have to comprehend that and then to go through the awful, torturous process of having to identify the bodies. The parents said today that they wanted to do this, speak to the media, partly to thank all those people who had provided support, but also obviously to honour the memory of their sons. We've been hearing from other people throughout the week who knew the boys well and talked about how much they have touched them, but just such an incalculable loss. The impact of this is obviously being felt from Ensenada through San Diego and of course all around Australia. But there is also an investigation going on here, and the parents obviously want justice to be done for their sons. There are major unanswered questions about who is actually responsible for these murders. At the moment, the Attorney General says their primary hypothesis is that they were killed because we saw somebody attempt to steal the tyres off their ute. Then there is a confrontation which leads to the men being shot in the head. But given that this is a renowned cartel area, given that we know that there are turf wars, and given that we also know that the three bodies were discovered in a well along with a fourth victim who seems to be unrelated, have many people questioning whether or not this is cartel related. At the moment, we have one man who's been charged with what's called forced disappearance. He will appear in court tomorrow, and we are expecting that those charges will be upgraded to murder. He was arrested at the same time as his brother and his romantic partner. They were not charged in relation to the disappearance, but they were charged in relation to drugs offences. But again, we wait to see whether or not there will be further charges laid.
All right, Carrington, thank you for the update and for your reporting.
The Israeli government says it will continue military operations in the southern Gaza city of Rafah while ceasefire negotiations continue. The ABC's Middle East correspondent Eric Torchek has more.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the country's war cabinet ordered this attack on Rafah precisely because Hamas did agree to the ceasefire. Mr Netanyahu said Hamas wanted to stop an Israeli invasion of Rafah and that Israel needs to make these moves in order to prevent Hamas from retaking control of Gaza. This operation, according to the Israeli Defence Minister, is continuing while the ceasefire talks are underway in Cairo. Israel Israel has dispatched what it called a mid-level negotiating team to continue those talks. It says the proposal accepted by Hamas contains significant differences to the one the Israeli government put forward a couple of weeks ago. Many of those things, it says, are not acceptable to the Israeli side. It says it doesn't contain the kind of security guarantees that Israel wants. A new poll released today of the Israeli public showed a majority of people think that a ceasefire and a hostage deal is a higher priority than attacking Rafah. So Palestinians inside Gaza are hoping that those people can exert pressure on the Israeli government to make a deal. The United States says so far it's satisfied that the Israeli operation inside Rafah is a limited one. It's not the broad operation that even Israel's closest allies are warning against, and those more than 1 million displaced Palestinians sheltering inside Rafah are hoping they're right. UN agencies also have said that Israel's seizure of the Rafah border crossing, the one with Egypt, and its closure of the Kerem Shalom crossing between Gaza and Israel after a fatal Hamas rocket attack 2 days ago, those things have effectively cut off all aid to the majority of people inside Gaza. They say the situation could be catastrophic. Their agencies inside Gaza are running out of fuel, and in a very short time they'll run out of food and water to deliver to vulnerable people as well.
Eric Torchek reporting there from Jerusalem. Emma's here with the rest of the morning's news.
OK, we're going to start with some developing news out of the UK because airports there are still experiencing major disruptions this morning after reports of a nationwide issue with Border Force e-gates. So these gates use facial recognition to check a person's identity and allow them to enter the country without talking to a Border Force officer. The UK Home Office says it's working to resolve the issue as soon as possible. Australia has joined the United States and UK in placing heavy new sanctions on the Russian leader of a prolific ransomware group. Dmitry Yuryevich Kosorov has been identified as a senior leader in the Lockbit group, which the federal government says was responsible for about 1 in 5 ransomware incidents in Australia last year. It's only the second time cyber sanctions have been imposed. 5 men have been caught crossing into Australia on a small dinghy in far north Queensland. The men, reportedly from the West African nation of Senegal, are in custody on Sabai Island in the Torres Strait, about 4 kilometres from the Papua New Guinean mainland. PNG police say they travelled via Indonesia using fake travel documents before attempting the crossing. 2 PNG nationals are being questioned over their alleged involvement. Australia's Antarctic icebreaker is expected to depart Hobart today after almost a month of industrial action against the ship's private operator Serco. After reaching a resolution last week, the ship is set to embark on the 1,500-kilometre journey to Macquarie Island to resupply the station. The Australian Antarctic Division told a recent Senate inquiry it had begun considering hiring an alternative vessel if the dispute couldn't be resolved. South Australia's government has appointed a new greyhound industry reform inspector in the wake of an independent inquiry into the industry late last year. Former Victorian Racing Integrity Commissioner Sal Perner will oversee Greyhound Racing SA's response to that review, launched following revelations by the ABC of dogs being abused. The industry was given 2 years to improve standards or face being banned.